Back in December 2021, as Jade and I were awaiting our first child, that coming spring, we had planned a brief baby moon in the Berkshires. There was just one problem: Omicron. Right before we were supposed to leave, we both tested positive for COVID. Our little trip was off, and fortunately, both of our cases were asymptomatic. I quickly Googled ideas for what to do with our 10 days of isolation, and the one that immediately stood out was build a big Lego set. Now, Jade and I are huge Harry Potter fans, so the natural choice was the epic 6,020-piece replica of Hogwarts. So we queued up all 8 Harry Potter movies, and 18 hours later, we had our castle. Best baby moon ever. One could call this week's Torah portion, Terumah, a Lego lover's dream. The Parsha begins as God instructs Moses to tell the children of Israel to bring Terumah, gifts, for the purpose of constructing the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary that our ancestors would carry with them as they wandered through the wilderness. As we read of the various components of the Mishkan that go into its assembly, the ark, the altar, the menorah, all those planks and poles, it's easy to imagine how their Lego facsimiles could come together. I'd like to think it would be an 1,800-piece set. It would certainly be an ambitious undertaking. That said, while the piece count of a Lego project might make its completion impressive, it doesn't necessarily make it better. Engineering professor Leidy Klotz tells a story about building a Lego bridge with his 3-year-old son. As they were assembling the support towers for the bridge, Klotz realized that the 2 towers were different heights. So he reached behind himself for a block to add to the shorter of the 2 towers. And as he was turning back, he saw that his son was removing a block from the taller tower. And in that instant, he realized that his initial impulse to add a block had been wrong. His 3-year-old son had worked out a faster and more efficient way to level the bridge: by subtraction. Subtraction. This moment of epiphany led to Klotz's recent book, Subtract: The Untapped Science of Less. In the book, Klotz explains the various biological, cultural, and socioeconomic reasons for the concept of subtraction neglect, our species' systematic tendency to solve problems by adding things instead of taking them away. We add rules to our rule books. We add tasks to our to-do lists. We add books to our bookshelves and new podcasts to our playlists. We add yoga or meditation or running to our routines. We just buy stuff. In short, we seek to improve our lives through addition. But as it is with Lego sets, so it is with life. When you're building a 6,020-piece Lego set, you start to notice the places where they jack up the piece count, that little plastic fluff that pads those numbers. Leonardo da Vinci defined perfection as the state where there is nothing left to take away. Don't get me wrong, those 18 hours of building were glorious, and Hogwarts may be a delightful addition to our home, but it is far from perfect. If you'll indulge me in a little heresy this Shabbat, one could say the same of the Mishkan. How much gold and silver and copper and yarn and linen and dolphin skins and acacia wood could one tabernacle possibly need? In fact, in a few weeks in Parashat Vayakel, we will read that the children of Israel actually brought so much stuff, too much stuff, for the job. Their impulse to add was so overwhelming that Moses had to command our ancestors to stop. Except, it's worth asking, was the call for Terumah, for gifts to God, really about adding things to the Mishkan? Or was it an invitation for our ancestors to experience the wondrous feeling of subtracting things from their lives? Think about it. Gold, silver, dolphin skins, lapis lazuli, these would have been among our ancestors' most precious possessions. And yet, once they started parting with them, they just couldn't stop. They appreciated immediately the transformative power of subtraction. What was the source of that power? Consider the famous verse that concludes the beginning of this week's Torah portion in the call for Terumah. V'asu li mikdash, v'shachanti b'tocham. And let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them. Rabbi Ruth Gaius observes that the word in this verse for dwell, shachanti, and the word mishkan, both share a root with the word Shekhinah, the word for the mystical divine presence. And the last word of the verse, betocham, we usually translate as among them, but it can also be read to mean within them, which offers a different way to understand God's request at the beginning of the parsha. And let them make a sacred space inside themselves, that my presence may dwell within them. And how do we create that space within ourselves, that spaciousness that welcomes the Shekhinah into our spirits? Not by adding, but by subtracting. By taking stock of our lives and actively seeing what we can let go of. What if I just stop going to yoga? Which podcasts can I take off my playlist? What can I put on my don't do list? How many words can I cut from this Devar Torah? Is it finally time to part with that Lego set? This Shabbat, let us embrace the lesson of Terumah, that subtraction is a gift that we give not just to God, but to ourselves. Because when we subtract, we make new space inside our souls where the divine presence can dwell. Shabbat Shalom.